What is up, everybody? I am Matt with I Edit Podcast, and today I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to give you 3 tips that you can use to level up your podcast editing game. I love this topic. I love podcast editing. Let's get into it. So, number 1 is to focus on the breaths, and I don't just mean in the mix, because if you are adding compression to your episodes, which you should be, then your breaths the volume of your breaths are also going to be brought up. And once they're brought up to a certain point, if they're like as loud as the dialogue is, then it's going to sound really jarring and unnatural to the listener. So you want to attenuate those either manually or with a plugin. I don't necessarily trust the plugins fully to attenuate the breaths. You might have to use that for the brunt of take a lot of the load off your shoulders and then go through and manually attenuate what that didn't catch. But make sure you pay attention to that in the mix, but then also make sure you're paying attention to the breaths in your edit and not fading that breath into any word, because that's going to sound really unnatural. And I'm talking even milliseconds matter in this instance. It might look okay on the timeline. It might look okay in the waveform, but use your ear. And you don't want to fade that breath into any word at all. So pay attention to your breaths. That's number 1. Number 2 is to cut on consonant sounds. And what do I mean by this? It's a lot more difficult, almost impossible, if my experience says anything. But it's really, really difficult to make an edit on vowel sounds when your mouth is open. Because you're never going to make the exact same sound twice with your mouth being open. There could be a million different factors, more or less breath, more or less energy. The shape of your mouth might not be exactly the same. So it's going to be really, really obvious if you try and make an edit on those vowel sounds. And it's a lot easier to make an edit on the closed mouth consonant sounds, like the T sounds, or the K, C sounds, the S sounds, SH, sh sounds. Because your mouth is closed, the frequencies are higher, so it's a lot more difficult to differentiate the two. If you make an edit, if you fade them together, it's a lot more different. It's a lot more difficult for us to tell those apart than those vowel lower frequency sounds. So hopefully that makes sense. If you want more clarification, let me know in the comments. But the last one I want to talk about is to make sure that you are paying attention to the reverb. A lot of the times, guests don't have the best audio quality possible, especially if you have a guest that is not exactly tech savvy and doesn't have a podcast of their own. They're going to have a lot of reverb. And if the word looks like it's ending on the timeline, it looks like it's ending in the waveform, it's probably about 200 milliseconds after that if the reverb is bad enough, depending on, obviously, the room that they're in and the quality of the audio. But about 200 milliseconds of audio that's still bouncing around in the room and coming back to that microphone. So make sure you're paying attention to that. If you cut that off in an edit, again, it might look okay in the waveform, but if you cut that reverb off, it's going to sound really, really unnatural. You're going to kind of cut the pace, the rhythm of the audio off, and it's going to sound like an edit point, it's just going to sound very unnatural, and obviously we don't want that. So if this helped you out, let me know. If you have any more tips, let me know. And if you want to hear any more, let me know that too. Let me know in the comments. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.